Welcome to week 5, everybody, in another video from the SFS channel. In this particular episode, I'll be breaking down 5 names at the running back position ahead of week 5 that I'm looking to buy and acquire for my rosters. For some of these guys, obviously, of course, all of them, I see them as appreciating assets, guys that I think can contribute more to my lineups that I'm going to have to pay the price here for in the long term. And of course, these are players that I think will have a big impact in the scoring category as time progresses here. We'll talk about the short and long-term situations that I'm looking to buy into here in today's episode. So if you're new around here, drop down, smash that subscribe button, and turn the bell on before we get started. That way you'll be notified every time I come out with a new piece of content and can get in here right away, get your questions asked and answered in the comment section below, and get everything you need to be set up for a great week of fantasy success. So hop in, you guys, kick back, relax, and let's get started. All right, one quick note for those of you guys that have been plugged into various trade episodes on the channel here throughout this season. That is that we have to view fantasy football trade markets like the stock market, if you will. What I mean by that is that the valuations of these players are ebbing and flowing, rising and falling on a continual basis here throughout the entirety of this season. Earlier on, I believe it was week 2 fantasy football, I had James Robinson as a sell high candidate. He just absolutely went off and looked like he was going to be one of the overvalued players heading into that week. Therefore, you can scale up and obviously make a more advantageous roster move for your team. This time around, I see an opportunity where we know what James Robinson is now. This is a guy that can put up top 12 numbers in a given week, but if you get into tough situations like we had last week, and we'll break that game down against Philadelphia here in this video in just a second here, you're going to see some stinker games. And it's not that any running back per se is immune to these stinker performances, but essentially what we're looking to do now, where you could take advantage of the overreaction in a positive direction earlier on this season, we're going to do the same here for teams that are needy at the running back position and take advantage of the overreaction in the negative department for this Jags offense. So at face value, what I'll say about this past week is one could make the argument that Travis Etienne is taking steps forward in this offense. He is making his way towards eating into James Robinson's opportunity share, and for that, as a Travis Etienne supporter throughout draft season this year, I'll say I disagree with that opinion. So that's something I'm tossing out there as a hypothetical perspective from someone in the fantasy community. My thoughts are that that is false. Here is why. James Robinson had just 8 rushing attempts in this past week's games and no receiving opportunities throughout this contest. Travis Etienne also was a little bit involved in the receiving game, but had 8 rushing attempts as well, a 50-50 split on the ground for these two players. The Jags started out this game against the Philadelphia Eagles on a 14-0 run. I believe it was Andre Sisco scored a pick 6 against Jalen Hurts to push the lead to 2 touchdowns, and after that, it was a total, absolute avalanche in some pretty shitty weather here for this Jags football team. They really struggled. It was raining a bit out there. It seemed a bit windy as well, and their passing offense totally fell apart, and as a result, Philadelphia came roaring back. They're a team that runs the football at a super high level. Miles Sanders had himself one heck of a day. Had him on the must-start list last week. Pat on the back to me there. However, he ran rampant. The Philadelphia Eagles took this game over, and from there, it was all Philadelphia all the rest of the way. What that leaves the Jacksonville Jaguars in a situation that they need to do is pass to try and catch up in this football game. Travis Etienne is the preferred receiving back for this offense. So when you get into those really negative game scripts, which we haven't seen Jacksonville do too often this year, they have to pull J-Rod out of the game because they want number 1 Travis Etienne handling the rock through the air and being that efficient playmaker in the receiving phase. So when that was the case, J-Rob goes to the bench and is a guy that doesn't necessarily have the best opportunities in the world, barring goal line opportunities to get in the end zone and make big plays happen for this team. So he got a pretty bad game script break here. Things did not play out in a fortunate fashion here for the Jags. I thought early after that 14-0 start, it was going to be the opposite. James Robinson was going to go nuts, and he was going to be the guy that just pounded this game out late in the, halfway through the third quarter marker, the fourth quarter as well, just sealing the deal for this Jags team. But then they fell apart, kind of crapped the bed here, and things were looking a bit scary. So while things are falling apart, while you have that box score number that reflects an even amount of opportunity between these two running backs, take advantage of James Robinson. Look at the coming schedule from now in week 5 until week 10 when they play Kansas City. Jacksonville plays the Houston Texans, the Indianapolis Colts, the New York Giants, the Denver Broncos, who looked like absolute paper against Josh Jacobs this past week and got shredded on the ground. And then they play Las Vegas, who actually put up a pretty stout front against this Denver Broncos team this past week. However, what I will say is every single one of those games, the Jags can hang in punch for punch with all of those teams. So the importance there is I don't expect negative game scripts to play too large of a factor into J-Rob's overall ability to be a fantasy scorer here. So maybe that Kansas City game causes some trouble here. I guess we'll learn a lot about those two teams. There's a lot of time between now and then to continue learning stuff about those two football teams. But of course, from now until then, the next 5 weeks or so, the next month, I'm feeling very, very confident about James Robinson's lineup utility here and overall ability to be a productive scorer for our teams. Rhamondre Stevenson, a guy who I think can be bought at a very, very fair price right now. I'm not going to necessarily call him a buy low option. He's definitely not a buy high player, but this is someone who's been such a consistent force in this Patriots backfield the past few weeks that I'm really growing in my optimism. I think that this week against Detroit, you want to buy him before this contest. I think he has the chance to go nuts. Damian Harris as well, for two guys that kind of have their own unique roles in this offense. They are both able to have a really good outing. Look at what Rashad Penny did to this Detroit Lions defensive front this past week. I believe it was, 27 rushes for $151 or 52, 2 touchdowns, averaging over 8 yards per clip, whatever the case was, and completely dominated that football game. So for Rhamondre Stevenson here, the reason I'm looking to buy him right now is I see him transitioning into a situation where he's taking over the predominant lead for this Pats backfield. This is the guy that's involved more in the receiving phase of things here, and I've loved the opportunities for him the past 2 weeks. He had 19 total opportunities for 89 yards from scrimmage against Green Bay, so nearly 100 scrimmage yards. You get a touchdown and bolster those numbers, you're looking even better there. He had 16 opportunities for 101 scrimmage yards in week 3. He's doing really nice things. And again, having that receiving involvement, being the third down back for this team is a big deal because you can deliver some good efficiency in those spots. Another thing I noticed, in situational key big moments for this Pats offense in a tight game against Green Bay, it actually went to overtime. Stevenson was the back on the field. That is important for me. Bill Belichick shows he trusts him. If he doesn't trust you, he's not putting you on the field in the big spot in the game. Stevenson on crucial third downs got the carry to try and pick up the first to continue the drive, potentially go make a run at beating Green Bay in regulation at the end of things there. And this is also a player who is heavily involved on their short stint, but still a factor on their overtime drive against the Packers as well. So Rhamondre Stevenson has a critical role for this offense. I believe that as the pass catching asset and also a very big bruising back who can find the end zone as well, that makes him the more valuable player to own at the position for this football team, and I would look to go out and secure him in your leagues as a fringe running back too that can be bought again at a fair price right now. Breece Hall, this is probably the most exciting name we have in today's episode. Now, his price is rising. I'm not going to pretend that that's not the case here. I'm not going to tell you guys you can go buy super low for him anymore. That ship, for the most part, has sailed here. But I still think things get better from here, and that's why I continue to put him in the must-buys episode. If you haven't bought in yet, what are you waiting for? We had skeptics all season long so far, the first month of the year. I'm sure he's made 3 of the 4, must-buy videos so far for the running back position this season, but there's more continual optimism coming from my direction. I think that this becomes a top 12 play on a per-game basis by the end of this season. Look at the running back landscape right now. Your top 12 players on a week-to-week basis at the position are guys like Jamal Williams. You're seeing guys like Josh Jacobs walk out here this past week and be the RB1 in scoring for week 4. There is so little competition for elite running back play right now, and I don't mean to glaze over guys like Austin Eckler, Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry doing really great things, but my point is, the amount of those type of players in fantasy football today are so much fewer and far between than they were even, say, 5 years ago. The data in terms of what the running back position is doing and what our expectations should be for these players is frankly dipping right now. And if you can take advantage of a rookie running back in Breece Hall, who is in the process of overtaking his team's backfield, I believe he went there and sealed the deal this past week, a 66% snap share of this team's offense. It has steadily risen the last 3 weeks. Michael Carter was at just 44%. He had 23 opportunities as opposed to just 12 for Michael Carter. This is the Breece Hall show now. And what really excites me is this Jets offense. If you watch the fourth quarter, Zach Wilson was in sync. He was in rhythm, delivering the football on time and on target. He has 3 really good receiving weapons: Corey Davis, Elijah Moore, and Garrett Wilson, who I think takes a step and establishes himself as Zach Wilson's alpha at some point in the coming weeks here. You've also got the elite talent of Breece Hall in this backfield, Michael Carter to take him out and give him some breaks when needed. If this Jets offense starts firing on all cylinders, and I'm not saying they're going to be an elite, offense like the breakout Bengals were last year, like Miami has been so far this year with Tua. Again, every time I bring him up, hope he gets healthy. Sounds like Teddy Bridgewater is actually, it doesn't sound like he is officially playing this week. Tua has been ruled out with a concussion. So for Breece Hall, things I think just you can forecast them to continually get better here. Zach Wilson played his first football game of the entire season. Remember, he had the knee issue, suffered in the preseason. He came back, beat Pittsburgh in his first start here, and I think that things continue to project to get better. I was really impressed to see that Breece got 6 targets from Zach Wilson this week, not something that I was super confident would happen. That is all great. Everything here from him as a talent, as a running back, a capable workhorse level build, the clear and, preferred goal line back for this offense. It's all turning out and shaping up to be what you hoped for when you drafted him in the 3rd round or so of your fantasy leagues this year. And if you can still continue to buy him for an affordable price, I am doing so because he's a total package and a complete running back in fantasy football. And again, there are not too many players like this at this point in time. Melvin Gordon here, this I think could potentially have the opportunity for a little bit of polarization in the comment section. So I'm interested to hear your guys' thoughts. I'm sure some people hate Melvin Gordon right now. I think that this is an opportunity to buy a running back to a solid level, top 24 play on a week-to-week basis for a fairly respectable price. Now, the reason, and I think this is why it's going to be somewhat polarizing, is because I think that depending on who your league mates are and depending on how the other guys in your league or girls or, whoever you're playing with here, depending on how your league mates overall view this Melvin Gordon situation with Javonte Williams, unfortunately, again, hope the guy gets healthy for next year. Feel terrible for him. He tore his ACL, just a terrible break for that Broncos offense. But that leaves Melvin Gordon as the dude here moving forward. So the question is going to be, are you confident in what Melvin Gordon can do? Because his production has been very, very, let's say, disappointing. We saw him basically get excluded from the game down the stretch against the Raiders. He hasn't lost 4 fumbles, but he has put the ball on the dirt 4 times in 4 games. That cannot happen. Coaches hate that, and we saw them very reluctant to hand the ball again. So he might not straight up get a bunch of workhorse carries right away. We'll see how this situation develops. That is the one red flag and cautionary marker I do have for you. And for that reason, like I said, some people probably aren't going to want to go buy Melvin Gordon, but this is a guy that, and I'm not going to pretend like I still think he's in his prime here. I think Melvin Gordon is probably on the back 2 or 3 years of his NFL career right now, especially if he keeps fumbling the ball at this rate. I'm sure we've seen running backs play, into their, mid-30s, but he's a 29-year-old running back right now. The point being, he is a capable goal line asset. We've seen him do really nice things with the LA Chargers earlier in his career before coming to a Denver Broncos team that eventually replaced him this past season with Javonte Williams, the 2nd-round draft pick from the 2021 class. So overall, you've got a situation with this offense looking to take some steps forward this past week. Only 12 first downs, which is pretty disappointing, but Russell Wilson did get the football moving down the field a little bit and was able to capitalize on some defensive opportunities in that game. So I think that Denver's offense has to take some steps forward here again. I'm interested to hear your guys' thoughts on the situation. I do think that it is not necessarily like a budget buy, but a fair value priced acquisition that you could get a top 24 player. I think Mike Boone will have his fair share of 35-40% of the team's offensive snap count percentages of this Broncos backfield. We'll see how they break that down right off the bat in this coming week on Thursday Night Football. It's a short turnaround. Again, sucks for Denver, sucks for Javonte Williams owners. I'm sorry about that. Hope he gets healthy. But Melvin Gordon, I'm sure actually a lot of Javonte owners have Melvin Gordon handcuffed, so I'm sure they're probably not going to sell him to you. But if you find that opportunity, I wouldn't mind going out and making a play for him. And then B-Rob here, good old Brian Robinson. So In both buy videos this week, we had some players, one player in each episode that has a lower rostership number. Brian Robinson's owned in 54% of Yahoo Fantasy Leagues, so there's a chance he's out there on the waiver wire. Go scoop him up. Otherwise, you might just be able to pay pennies to get him off of someone else's hands. He's more than likely, if he's on someone's roster, just an IR stash right now. And depending on that team's running back situation, you could get an unproven asset that really doesn't have too much of, trade weight here. You can make the argument and negotiate with your league mate that, hey, he has not played an NFL game before. We haven't seen him in regular season action, and he has no recorded statistical production. Why should I be paying a premium price for this guy? So the intrigue here is the versatility for Brian Robinson. I posted a YouTube short about this, or a TikTok, whatever you want to call it. I posted it in both places. It's just a short style content piece talking about Brian Robinson and what he brings to the table for this Commanders offense. And essentially, it's a large body, perfect for third and short and goal line situations that can soak up those valuable premium touches inside the 5-yard line, get you first downs, and he's also a dang good and dominant pass protector. So in situations where we're looking at the Commanders, Carson Wentz has been getting himself killed. This offensive line has been atrocious so far. B-Rob can come in there, find his way on the football field, and potentially have some delayed routes where he picks up, chips, blocks for a couple seconds, and then releases off the line of scrimmage and ends up making a play out of the backfield as a receiver. So not that he's a highly coveted pass-catching asset. There's just a lot of ways and arguments, cases to be made for why he should be himself on the field and touching the rock for this team. So seeing Antonio Gibson's snap count percentage literally decline every single week here for the first 4 weeks of the year is also indicative to me that Brian Robinson is going to have a function in this offense. It's just, I don't view Antonio Gibson right now as a huge barrier to entry for him. And if he's getting those premium touches, that in its own right is valuable. And you could see him totally take over this backfield and be a player with upside far higher than his trade price at this current point in time. So let me know your thoughts on Brian Robinson. Good old B-Rob here for Week 5 Fantasy Football. What players are you buying this week? What players are you looking to sell? What trades do you have for me? Leave that stuff in the comment section of today's video. I'll recap for you guys really quick here. B-Rob, Melvin Gordon, Breece Hall, Rhamondre Stevenson, and James Robinson. Some, again, budget players, fair value players, whatever you want to call it. We've got some buy lows. We've got some buy fairs, if that makes sense. Just guys I want rostered on my team. I'm not looking to pay a fortune or recommend that you guys go out and make these mega deals, which is why I try and stay away from guys like Jonathan Taylor, who just stunk it up and got injured. You can make a case to buy low for him, but really, what is that low price? You're talking about giving up your team's best running back, biting the bullet for Thursday Night Football potentially this week if he doesn't play. I hear there's a chance he does, but you get the point here. So I try and toss names to you guys that have utility for teams and give you the opportunity to get some inroads made towards your league championships, and obviously guys that have utility in the longer term perspective of this season. So for me, B-Rob is definitely a longer term play. Breece Hall, a longer term play, although it seems like that longer term play is starting to play out now. So it's exciting stuff, all great stuff to take a peek at. So go check out our other buy video for this week, the 5 wide receivers I'm looking to add, and our sell content as well. We've got a Week 5 playlist up on the channel and a bunch of great stuff to check out in the description of today's video. So go check all that stuff out, you guys. I appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.